Monstrous structure. The Eiffel Tower as we know it was once a mere concept, faced with disgust by a majority of Parisians and a select group of prominent people, including some artists. Monstrous structure, they called it, as they petitioned for its discontinuation. As the project moved into construction, the group took matters and sent a petition led by a well-known architect, Charles Garnier, representing the group. Among them were William Adolphe Bouguereau, Guy de Maupassant, Charles Gounod, and Jules Massenet. They believed the construction of the tower was going to taint the beautiful Paris skyline. They wrote a petition titled Artists Against the Eiffel Tower, which they sent to Adolphe Alphand, who was the commissioner for the exposition, to immediately stop the project. Their letter was published by Le Temps in the 14th of February 1887 issue of the publication and read, "We, writers, painters, sculptors, architects, and passionate devotees of the hitherto untouched beauty of Paris, protest with all our strength, with all our indignation, in the name of slighted French taste, against the erection of this useless and monstrous Eiffel Tower. To bring our arguments home, imagine for a moment a giddy, ridiculous tower dominating Paris like a gigantic black smokestack, crushing under its barbaric bulk Notre Dame, the Tour Saint-Jacques, the Louvre, the Dome of Les Invalides, the Arc de Triomphe. All of our humiliated monuments will disappear in this ghastly dream, and for 20 years we shall see, stretching like a blot of ink, the hateful shadow of the hateful column of bolted sheet metal." With his life's work on the line, Gustave Eiffel remained unbothered and trusted his research. He believed in what he was building. In a conversation with a journalist, he pointed out that it was premature for anyone to tell how the tower will fit into the skyline, and that relying on only drawings was not enough, as the Champ de Mars was not quite as close to the various monuments mentioned in the petition. In his response, he also said, "Do not the laws of natural forces always conform to the secret laws of harmony?" indicating that the tower had little chance to overwhelm the monuments and destroy the beauty and aesthetic appeal they gave the city. Gustave also made a striking comparison between what he was building and the pyramids at Giza, saying, "My tower will be the tallest edifice ever erected by man. Will it not also be grandiose in its way? And why would something admirable in Egypt become hideous and ridiculous in Paris? Can one think that because we are engineers, beauty does not preoccupy us, or that we do not try to build beautiful as well as solid and long-lasting structures? Aren't the genuine functions of strength always in keeping with unwritten conditions of harmony? Besides, there is an attraction, a special charm in the colossal, to which ordinary theories of art do not apply." The artists were concerned that the design will not look as iconic and beautiful as their works. The group was made up of about 300 people, representing various interests and professions, some of which included environmental concerns, concerns for its structural integrity, and lastly, its aesthetic appeal. But once the tower was fully constructed, the majority of them changed their minds and in turn praised Eiffel's work. The tower gained national prominence a few decades after, when it was used in a nationalist poem by the writer Guillaume Apollinaire in the form of a calligram. Guillaume Apollinaire expressed his feelings about the French-Germany War, which caught on and gave the tower another significance to the French people, not only Paris, as it quickly rose to become a symbol of Paris and France entirely on the world stage. Today, anyone who sees the tower immediately thinks about Paris and France. True to his words, Gustave Eiffel created arguably the most significant piece of architecture and art in France that has been significant to the country's art, music, architecture, politics, and given France a reputation on the world stage that has been the topic of many poems, songs, movies, and inspired replicas all around the world. After all was said and done, the protesters did change their minds, except a few, like Guy de Maupassant, ironically, had to dine at the tower's restaurants because it was the only place where he couldn't see the cast shadow of the tower. Story of the Tower. The Eiffel Tower was officially opened on March 31, 1889, after about 2 years of construction, since the first assembly of the supports of the tower was done on the 1st of July, 1887. The tower was built by Alexandre Gustave Eiffel, a French civil engineer, known for building bridges and viaducts. The tower was a project embarked on as a way of celebrating the storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, and the centenary of the French Revolution. Contrary to popular belief, the tower was not designed by Gustave Eiffel, but rather was drawn by Maurice Koechlin and Émile Noguier, who were engineers at the Compagnie des Établissements Eiffel, a corporation owned by Gustave Eiffel, with inspiration from the Landing Observatory built in New York City in 1853. The original design drawings featured a 300-meter-high structure, but Eiffel was not particularly excited about the project, even though he asked for further research to be made into it and some features to be included in its design. The plan came about when the World's Fair to be held in 1889 in France was being planned. The designs presented to Eiffel were not satisfactory, and he requested that some further research and design modifications be made to it. The duo who first designed it approached architect Stéphane Salvestre, who made some pretty significant contributions to the design of the tower as we now know it. Some of his contributions include the pedestals dressing the legs, the monumental arches linking the columns, and the first level. His ideas helped the design gain a much more appealing and unique design. Upon these additions, Eiffel was comfortable enough with the idea to buy the rights to the structural plan, which he used to enter into the competition, for which plan won the privilege of being the centerpiece of the World's Fair. The project was required to be erected at the Champ de Mars, made of iron, and has a square base 125 meters across and 300 meters in height. These requirements rendered all the 107 projects tended unqualified with the exception of Eiffel's design. When the idea for the tower was conceived, it was designed to be a large pylon with 4 columns made of latticework girders and separated down at the base and gradually converged at the very top of the tower. The columns were joined together by metal girders at specific intervals to hold them together. Its curved structure in the columns was carefully determined using mathematical calculations calibrated for the best wind resistance and strength. In Eiffel's own words, all the cutting force of the wind passes into the interior of the leading edge uprights. Lines drawn tangential to each upright with the point of each tangent at the same height will always intersect at a second point, which is exactly the point through which passes the flow resultant from the action of the wind on that part of the tower's support situated above the 2 points in question. Before coming together at the high pinnacle, the uprights appear to burst out of the ground and, in a way, to be shaped by the action of the wind. To construct this monumental structure, it took Eiffel and his team 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days to complete in the grand style of structural, architectural, and aesthetic magnificence, and it quickly became a success during the World Expo. The tower was made from materials fabricated right in Eiffel's factory. The French wanted everything to be right from their homeland, perhaps to show their own advancement in the ways of construction and architecture. Eiffel's factory, located on the outskirts of Paris, would be the sole maker and supplier of the 18,000 pieces of iron used in building the tower. Although accurately and carefully designed iron pieces, they put together the tower piece by piece throughout the 2 years of construction, which, when considered, was at a faster rate than would have been expected. Eiffel was no beginner in working with iron and construction. He had been building bridges and constructing other prominent structures throughout the country and the world. Every millimeter was measured to be sure no mistakes, no errors were made. About 300 workers were involved in the project from its start to finish. They spent the majority of construction hours assembling the pieces of iron brought from the factory. The tower was originally scheduled to be handed over to the Paris authorities, who had nothing but very bleak plans for it. They wanted to destroy it as scrap metal 20 years later in 1909. In a fit to save his creation, Eiffel had a science laboratory and other facilities constructed in order to add more significance to the building. It also became home to several other structures that were added to the building, including a radio antenna, which was appended to the building's pinnacle, increasing its height and making it more valuable to the authorities. Eiffel was also encouraging scientific experimentation at the structure, having accommodated famous scientists in his private space on the last floor of the building, famous scientists like Thomas Edison. The installation of the radio signals from the Pantheon Tower in 1898 served as a military radio post in 1903 during the war. It was later used as a transmitter for the first public radio program in 1925 and later for broadcast television. The tremendous success of the tower was in no way a small achievement for the French industrialists, but in its success, it dwarfed its builder, Gustave Eiffel. The monumental undertaking, a sign of construction genius even today, is a marvel, and scientists and hobbyists are still working out formulas to explain its success and how it is still a standing testament to our age. But Eiffel had other works which became overshadowed by the tower. Today, the name Eiffel is only popular for the tower, and the majority of people do not know of its builder and his other magnificent works. It's true that the tower was revolutionary and marked the advancement in technology in France in the use of iron and rivets. It held the world's tallest building title for 4 decades, until the construction of the Chrysler Building in New York. Gustave Eiffel. Gustave Eiffel not only built structures, but also constructed a legacy for himself and solidified his name in the French books of history. Today, his works can be found in over 20 nations, with his methods and innovations used worldwide in science, architecture, and building technology. Born Birkenhausen dit Eiffel on 15 December 1832 in Dijon, his name was later changed to Alexandre Gustave Eiffel. He was born into a family of German immigrants in France. His dad was a retired army worker, while his mother made a name for herself as an established businesswoman. His dad would later retire from government work to support his wife. Gustave was not particularly bright and was hard amused by what school had for him. He attended École Polytechnique and the École Centrale des Arts et Manufactures, College of Art and Manufacturing, in Paris, where he would start a career in metal and construction work, carving his path as a specialist bridge builder. He got some experience working for his uncle, where he got bigger and bigger contracts to build bridges. Some contracts even got him to Egypt, where he studied the Suez Canal. His first big project was constructing the Iron Bridge in the town of Bordeaux. With his various successes and a dwindling company, Eiffel decided to go out on his own, starting a company of his own in 1865. From the 1860s to the mid-years of the 1880s, he designed several projects, including the arched gallery of machines for the Paris exhibition of 1867, a 525-foot steel arch bridge across the Douro River in Oporto, Portugal, the dome for the Astronomical Observatory in Nice, France, the Budapest railway station, and the metal framework for the Statue of Liberty in New York, United States. But in all of his marvelous works, it is the Eiffel Tower that has been the defining work of his career, a monument even he couldn't overshadow in his latest designs. The tower has become an emblem, a sort of coat of arms for the French people.